Good afternoon, traders. This is CloudChartist with your weekly Ichimoku wrap for Sunday, June 12th. This is for the week ending Friday, June 10th. I'm a little bit shaken up about the Orlando nightclub shooting. The shooter lived very close to where I live, but I'm going to try to put that out of my mind and get on with the charts. So let's start off with the ES. We're looking at the weekly time frame. We see that last week we had I don't know, you might want to call this an inverse hammer type candle. We did put in it is an outside candle of the week before last. We put in a higher high and a lower low. So the trend is still officially up because outside candle does not change the trend. But it's looking like it's entirely possible that we could see some more selling to the point of the Tenkan-sen. Tenkan-sen is currently at 2070.88. When the new weekly candle opens up at 6 o'clock in about 36 minutes, we could see the Tenkan-sen in a different location. So we will see if that indeed happens. In fact, it would be interesting to note that if the Tenkan-sen is higher, which it could be because we did put in a higher high, that we might have actually completed the correction to the downside and we might be ready to power higher. We are a bit extended over the cloud, but not too far. As you can see, looking at the RSI, we're not overbought in any way. And overall in Ichimoku terms, we are completely bullish. Price action is above the cloud and above the Tenkan-sen. The Tenkan-sen is bull crossed over the Kijun-sen. This blue line is the Tenkan-sen. And the Chikou is above the clouds, and it's kind of tangled up in this candle, but when the new weekly candle opens up, it will be moved over one candle, so it will be still above the cloud unless we gap down underneath 2072, which is pretty unlikely, I'm going to guess. All right, so let's move on. Let's look at crude next. So interestingly, crude broke over the weekly cloud last week and then sold off and closed right inside the top of the weekly cloud. I'm going to zoom in even a little bit closer. Oh, and by the way, I didn't mention that we did have a contract roll on the ES basically on Friday, and several other contracts moved to the U6 contract from the M6 contract. When this happens, it can be cause some gap discrepancies in the charts. I always chart weekly charts using the continuous contracts. So if you see some discrepancies between the U6 and the M6 contracts and the charts that I'm showing you, that's why. The continuous contract is the only way for me to get the adequate Ichimoku data in order to do this analysis. I oftentimes can't get enough weekly data in order to draw the clouds properly from the shorter time frame of the individual contracts. Just wanted to make that clear. So back to CL. We see that we had the cloud at 48.87 and we closed at 48.88. I made a point on Twitter to keep an eye on that 48.87 level, and indeed it came into play. So technically we closed one tick above the cloud, so crude is still bullish, technically, in Ichimoku terms. It's often the case that when price makes a fast move through the cloud and breaks out above the cloud, that it does pull back to the cloud, especially if the cloud is flat in that area. We do have this flat area in the cloud coming up. It's this week. The new candle is going to open up on this little slightly downward tilting area of the cloud, and then the cloud is going to be flat basically for the rest of June. So I would not be surprised to see some sideways action over this flat cloud. Flat areas in Ichimoku tend to attract price. In the event that we do lose the cloud, the top of the cloud, and move back into the cloud, then we will be in neutral. Price will be neutral in Ichimoku terms, and we could find support at the Tenkan-sen, which is currently at 45.34. In fact, the Tenkan-sen and the cloud are confluent right here at this level. We'll see where the Tenkan-sen is when the new candle opens up, and that will be support wherever it happens to be inside the cloud if we do sell into the cloud. The Chikou is this red line over here representing price action time shifted 26 periods into the past. We see that it is over the Kijun-sen, so it's not in danger of resisting. But if we do move lower, the Chikou could also find support at the Kijun-sen anywhere in this like 48 area. So we could find support at that level too, because wherever the Chikou finds support, current price action can find support as well. So I have a pretty neutral bias on crude at the moment here. It has been in a nice uptrend, and the uptrend is still technically intact. But I wouldn't be surprised to see some sideways action here on CL. Let's go to NASDAQ. So NASDAQ has been making this triangle type pattern. I don't know if you agree with my trend lines. I tend to not use wicks when I draw trend lines. Sometimes I use draw multiple trend lines with the wicks and without the wicks, but you get the point. It's obvious to me anyway that there is a triangle going on here, and we did see some price rejection at the top of the triangle in the general vicinity, and came down to almost to the Tenkan-sen, but not quite to the Tenkan-sen. I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer even. So for the upcoming week, I'm going to expect the potential for testing the cloud, which is going to be slightly higher than where it was last week. The cloud is going to be approximately at 44, 45, 50. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that tested and act as support. And then potentially we could either get a move up back towards the trend line up here around 45, let's call it 45.23, or if the cloud does not, the top of the cloud does not hold as support, we could look for potential support at the Tenkan-sen. The Tenkan-sen is currently at 44.2775. We'll see where it happens to open up when the new candle opens up. If we lose the support of the Tenkan-sen, then we could come down and test the bottom trend line here, which is around 44, let's say 44.05, 44.06, something like that. And depending on what happens, there's a potential for either an upside or a downside break of this triangle coming up very soon, because you can see that we're working towards the apex of this triangle, if you even agree with that triangle. I know it's a little beyond my regular Ichimoku, but I've just found this trend line to be working very nicely. If we do lose the support of the Tenkan-sen, and we move into the cloud, we will be in neutral price action in Ichimoku terms all the way down until we get to the bottom of the cloud, which is at 43.2388. And then we do have support of the Kijun-sen below that around 42.80 if we do get a downside break. The cloud in the future, you can see, is quite thin and has many flips. So that's not necessarily particularly supportive of continued bullish price action. Looks more like supportive of sideways price action here. Let's look at the Russell. But technically, the NASDAQ is still bullish. In Ichimoku terms, price action is still above the cloud and above the Tenkan-sen. Tenkan-sen is bull crossed. All right, looking at the Russell. We see that the Russell, and I was trading this, I was quite impressed at the bullishness of the Russell as it moved and broke over the top of the cloud during the week, but then sold off, lost the top of the cloud, the bottom of the cloud, and ended up closing back in the lower end of its range. This is a reversal type candle. Price action is still on an uptrend as we did put in a higher high and a higher low, but this type of candle suggests that we will get a trend change to the downside. In order to confirm a trend change to the downside, we would need to see a lower high and a lower low. I would not be surprised to see the Russell come down and test the Tenkan Sen wherever the Tenkan Sen opens up. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Tenkan Sen open up higher, maybe around 1148. I'm just guessing. This 1148 area is obvious prior resistance. You can see if I move horizontally that it was resistance over here and here as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see price action come down and test the Tenkan Sen, and then we'll see whether or not it can be supportive. Technically, the Russell is bearish as it is still under the cloud, but it is productive for bulls that we do have a bull cross. The Tenkan Sen is crossed bullishly over the Kijun Sen, and price action is above the Tenkan Sen. Also, if we are to look sideways, we see a very thin isthmus of cloudness here. So we could break through the cloud going sideways, and that's going to be, we're going to run into the cloud in the beginning of July if we do not get over it before then. Then looking forward into the rest of the summertime and into October, November, December season, this is just one of the great things about Ichimoku charts is we have price information going into the future all the way 26 weeks into the future. So I can already see what the cloud is going to be doing for the rest of the year. Or you can too. We all can. Anyone with an Ichimoku chart can see what the cloud is going to be doing for the rest of the year. So we have a very flat cloud coming up into the end of the year, which suggests sideways price action. It is not particularly supportive for a move to the upside. If we do get a move to the downside and we break below the top of the cloud at 11:14:30, and I'm not talking, this is going to happen in August. You see where my cursor is. I'm talking about August, September, October, November. We have quite a thick supportive cloud. But at the moment, the cloud is quite thin in this area. And we don't have any cloud support below us currently. So if we lose the support of the Tenkan Sen, we could come down and potentially test the support of the Kijun Sen, and could go lower. We have no cloud below us. So that's the Russell for you. Let's look at the Dow. I feel like I sometimes forget the Dow. I don't trade the Dow, so that might be why. The Dow is still is basically bull flagging above the Tenkan Sen. It's bullish above the cloud, and above the Tenkan Sen we have a flat Tenkan Sen and a flat Kijun Sen, suggesting a sideways price action. We have a pretty thin and flat cloud with some twists coming up ahead, also suggesting sideways price action. So I'm just looking to see whether or not the Dow holds the Tenkan Sen, which is currently at 17,690. If we see price action below the Tenkan Sen, we can look at some horizontal levels, like this 17,454 level looks kind of relevant and important. And as long as we stay in like this kind of, let me draw this in for you. As long as we stay in this sort of range for a flag, something like this, I would consider the price action to be still of the bull flag type nature, and expect potential for a breakout to the upside is possible. But if we lose the bottom of this rectangle area, maybe I should have drawn the rectangle slightly, lower, like maybe like that. If we lose the bottom of this rectangle area, then I would suggest that it's entirely possible that we'll come down and test the top of the cloud. And for the next, next couple of weeks, we're going to have this higher little plateau of a cloud up here at, that's at 17,069. So that could potentially act as support if we do find a breakdown out of this bull flag type area. All right, let's move on and look at some metals. Let's start with gold. Let me get rid of my fibs. All right, so gold put in some very bullish candles the last couple of weeks, but if you look at the bigger pattern, You see that gold is just doing a bull flag type price action here. So it's possible that we could continue in sideways flagging action, although price is bullish, and it's over the cloud, over the Tenkan-sen, over the Kijun-sen. The Tenkan-sen is going sideways, the Kijun-sen is going sideways. Cloud is continuing lower, in fact, and then we have a cloud twist over here. This is going into like the end of August, into the August area here. So it's possible that price action could be attracted to this cloud twist area down here unless we continue moving higher, which we could do also. In fact, maybe it would be good to zoom out and look at a bigger picture of gold, because you see that we have plenty of room to go to the upside if that decides to happen, and we can't really see the cloud too far into the future. So it's possible that we could just be bull flagging for a higher move, but I don't expect that higher move to happen immediately, I guess is what the point I'm trying to make. We could see this as some sort of bottoming pattern, I suppose. Some people are talking about that. It's not really an official inverse head and shoulders or anything like that as far as the way I look at that kind of thing. Let's move on and look at silver. This sort of does look more like an inverse head and shoulders. I've been talking about that lately, maybe a neckline sort of in this area. And if that's the case, we kind of did potentially maybe even get the measured move. Like say we draw the neckline to here. That kind of completes the measured move for the this potential inverse head and shoulders pseudo pattern. So regardless, we did have a very bullish move last week from silver. We broke back over the Tenkan-sen at 1671.5 and continued higher. We did find resistance at the same area that this candle in May 16th candle ended up. We found resistance in the same general area. If we do get a move higher, we see the Chikou here is neutral inside the cloud. We could find resistance here as the Chikou hits the top of the cloud, up here at like the 1789 level, which is where we found resistance previously. You can see the Chikou came up and hit that level at the same time that this candle was coming up and hitting that level and reversed. So if we do move higher, definitely keep an eye on the 1789 area for potential resistance. If we get a move lower, look for the Tenkan-sen to potentially provide support, 1671.5 currently, or wherever the new Tenkan-sen opens up. Then if we do lose that 1671 area of support, we can look for potential for support all the way back down here at the cloud around the 1606, 1605 level. All right, let's move along. Let's look at some treasuries. You see that ZB has been in a bull flag type pattern for a while, and indeed broke over the range of the triangle. I mean, sorry, of the flag. I had been looking at this kind of range, and we did put in a breakout above that range. So a bullish break of a bull flag. So that would suggest that there's a good likelihood that 30-year Treasury bonds are going to move higher, unless we get a pullback. We could come back and test potentially the top of the range again, which is around 166. Let's see what this high was, 166.28. And then potentially we could also come down and potentially test the Tenkan-sen. Tenkan-sen's currently at 164.30, but will almost certainly open higher In fact, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Tenkan-sen come up, maybe open up around that 166.08, or sorry, 166. 26 level, thereabouts. So we'll see. We do have a rising cloud that is more supportive for an up move than many of the other cloud patterns that we've been looking at. You see that the cloud is clearly rising. I had been looking at the Bund and thinking that, it looked extremely likely for a very big move to the upside. So we'll see. Let's look at the 10-year. 10-year very similar to the 30-year, similar type bull flag type pattern, and break out to the upside. We do have the same kind of rising cloud support, so everything is bullish in Ichimoku terms with regards to the 10-year Treasury notes. If we do get a pullback, we can look for support at the Tenkan-sen, currently at 130, 110, and will probably be higher when the new candle opens. Let's look at the dollar. The dollar saw a fair amount of selling last week and then put in a hardy bounce, closing back inside neutral territory after a bearish close last week. We came down and tested below the Tenkan-sen, and then after opening right at the Tenkan-sen, and then closed inside the cloud at 94.735. I would say that it's possible that we could continue the up move, but we will probably be thwarted by the Kijun-sen when we get up there at 95.91.5. If we do continue, if we do break lower, we will have support back at the bottom of the cloud at 94.30, thereabouts. We do have a rising cloud here, so that also supports the theory of higher prices. We see that the Chikou over here is going to run into the top of the cloud at approximately 95.50, thereabouts. 95, so we could 95.55. So we could see that area acting as resistance, which is actually before the Kijun-sen up here at 95.91. Let's see. Let's look at the dollar yen. Very important. A harbinger of price action at the moment. The yen and the Nikkei been giving us a lot of clues. I drew these fibs a while back. They are working pretty nicely. So, and the new candle is already open on the weekly for this forex pair. But you do see that we have been managing to hold this fib, this 38.2 fib level, and I would expect that it's entirely possible that we could get a bounce for dollar yen and come back up and test the Tenkan-sen up here at 108.71. As it seems like we've been holding this area pretty well despite the pretty bullish move in the yen as of late. Let's look at the Nikkei. Oops. Nikkei is bear flagging underneath the cloud, so it's still technically bearish in Ichimoku terms. In fact, in every possible way. It was rejected at the Tenkan-sen as it tried to catch a bounce last week off the lows, put in an inverse hammer type pattern. So there still is the possibility for a trend change back to the upside. We did put an inside candle in last week after putting an outside candle in the week before after being in an uptrend. So technically we still are in an uptrend, I think, unless this put in a lower low. Let's see, the low is 16270, 16. No, it did put in a higher low. So technically we're still kind of in an uptrend for the Nikkei, but we're still bearish in Ichimoku terms, and always Ichimoku. We do have this arc in the cloud and arch in the cloud, and oftentimes price action will move to fill in to go higher and follow the shape of the cloud when clouds are shaped like this. Just a little tip. So if we do get a move higher, look at that 16695 area as potential resistance and at the 17373 area as resistance. I'm just going to look at a couple of commodity charts real quick. The commodities have been pretty bullish lately. Let's look at coffee. Coffee made a very bullish move last week after the week before had closed inside the cloud, and then last week made a very strong move towards the top of the cloud, towards the top of the flat top of the cloud, but then sold back a bit. See, this was a prior resistance area previously back in the around this time last year. So we are in an uptrend, but we are neutral in Ichimoku terms. You'll note also that where we started to sell off is where the Chikou came in contact with the cloud. So if you were trading coffee last week and you had Ichimoku charts, you would have made note of this weekly cloud level as potentially a good place to find resistance, and that would have been a nice short. So we'll see what happens next week. If we do move higher, we're going to have resistance at that same level where the Chikou will run into the cloud, and then also at the flat cloud above here at 148.25. If we do move lower, we should have support at the Tenkan-sen 131.95 or wherever the new Tenkan-sen opens up. And let's just look at corn. So I identified this prior gap area that we did fill, and we moved above the gap, and then we closed below this gap area. So we did get that gap filled, but closed lower. This is a reversal type candle. A lot of sellers in this big wick to the upside. We have this very flat cloud below, so I would not be surprised to see sideways price action to lower price action for corn in the upcoming future. I think I'm going to end it at this time. Thanks for watching my video, if you're interested in learning more about Ichimoku, feel free to check out my website at CloudChartist.com. I do run a chat room. I'm doing sort of some introductory stuff, have some new members who are pretty new to the plan. So if you're thinking about getting into learning Ichimoku, you might want to get in touch with me, potentially signing up for my room. Some of my old regular members are on summer vacation, so I have a little bit more time to spend with people than usual. So check me out if that's the case. Good luck trading this week. And don't forget, it's summertime trading, so we could see, chop, and could be low volume chop. Trading conditions have not been super great for the last couple weeks. So be careful. Remember, you don't have to trade. You can always keep your money in your account in cash. And anyway, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time.